Cyril Amarchand Mangaldas presents CNBC TV18, The Thought League Season 3, A Glorious Decade, A Century of Service.
Hello and welcome to Cyril Amarchand Mangaldas presents CNBC TV18, The Thought League Season 3, a series that dives deep into the ideas and insights shaping Indian business. In today's episode, we'll explore how leaders navigate transformation while staying true to their core values and how purpose-driven leadership can create lasting economic and societal impact. Joining us today are Ajay Piramal, chairman of the Piramal Group, a visionary leader who has steered his conglomerate through multiple transformations across industries. Cyril Shroff is managing partner at Cyril Amarchand Mangaldas, a distinguished legal mind who has championed values and purpose at the heart of his journey. In this conversation, we'll discover a different side of both leaders, delving into how their spiritual wisdom and business acumen are deeply connected, and how these insights help them drive change from the inside out. Gentlemen, welcome to the program. Thank you very much for joining us. Mr. Piramal, let me start with you, sir. You've spoken often about values-based leadership. How have your values created economic value and guided the transformation at the Piramal Group, sir?
I think the best way is to give you two examples. When I started business, we had a traditional textile business. And at that time, our business had gone through, there was a famous textile strike in Mumbai, which really, almost 250,000 workers all across the industry struck work. And therefore, all the textile mills in the city, and in fact in the country, were going through very challenging times. And I would say that during this time as well, we were one of the rare exceptions which stuck to saying that we will repay every creditor of ours and every worker. And this was in 1983, 84. Then we realized that we had to move away from textiles to do something different. And we looked at acquiring a small multinational pharma company. We were not that well known as some of the other competition was, but I would say that it was this value, that how we had settled all the creditors and all the workers, which then gave us an edge into being chosen when there was a lot of competition in the pharma business. Beyond that, when we went into pharma, we grew in pharmaceuticals through a lot of acquisitions. When we acquired Nicholas at that time, it was the 48th in ranking in terms of ORG, in terms of sales. But we put two things which were in the agreement with our global partner. One is that we will not export in their same brand names because India costs were lower. And the second was that we will also we will respect intellectual property and the high quality standards. All this meant that the cost was a lot more than what our competition did. So it was a cost in the short term, but in the long term, we found that every multinational that was looking to exit India, and there were many of them. It was Roche, Boehringer, Mannheim, parts of ICI, parts of Ron Poulenc, and so on. And we were the first choice. In fact, we paid less than what our competition was doing. In fact, there was one company which also wanted to file a suit against us, but you can't do anything if the buyer and the seller agree. So therefore, this helped us to create economic value. Therefore, we were 48th when we entered the business. In 2009, we became the third largest.
Mr. Piramal, fascinating stuff. And we usually hear about your deals, right? The deals that you've made over the years. And each of those deals is often seen by the street as value enhancing and tremendous value over the years. Do you think, some of the things you did initially with textiles and then with your partnership with global pharma companies as well, build that reputation which helped you to leapfrog and in other business verticals as well, because you're not now just in one segment, you're doing multiple things, financial services as well.
So let me just give you the example of pharmaceuticals. Because of this value, when we acquired the Nicholas, we paid 0.3 times of sales at that time. I remember the value. And we sold that business of the domestic formulations business in 2010, and it was a sales multiple of 9 times. So it was a 27 times enhancement of just multiples. And the value was the most, I think it's been the most valued generic branded formulations business in the world. But this values, the values actually go on to other businesses. So you're right. It went into, we have got other businesses and financial services, whether it was glass manufacturing and real estate. All these are actually have a common string of values.
I remember that Abbott deal, and we all went like, wow. The intangibles is what we're focusing on and how it helped you get there in terms of value accretion as well. Mr. Shroff, if I can come to you in a profession like law, sir, it's all about performance, precision. How do you ensure that purpose and values don't get diluted?
Well, thank you. Great question, Prashant. Values and purpose is relevant to any kind of business or any kind of organization. It's ultimately all about leadership. Now, whilst law is a sort of adversarial and precise and very formal kind of profession, that is not the entire story. These two are not mutually exclusive. So, as it's famously said, that finality is good, but justice is better. So you have to look at everything in context. And sometimes these principles seem to be at odds, but they are not. And I think one famous expression which I often rely upon is, there is a difference between niti and nyaya. It's there in the Gita as well as also I think Dr. Amartya Sen has referred to it in his book about justice. So and these are very important distinctions. So niti is more about process, and nyaya is about justice. So finally, when you look back and you zoom out and look at any situation, whether it's a dispute or whether it's even a deal that you do, one of the things which I've noticed about Ajay is that he's always fair to both sides, and the way he negotiates his deals, and I've lived through many of them. So ethical dialogue, I think, is very important. I think you have to really find a fair balance, because those are the only things that stick. And lawyers are not just people who sort of argue in courts and get judgment, but I think they're a very important role. They play a very important role in society itself in achieving different types of outcomes. I think we are a civilization because of the rule of law. One of the dialogues that we have in the firm is about the 4 quadrants. You've probably heard it from me before as well. So I think it's just important to be not to vary, move too much out of either the Rama quadrant or the Krishna quadrant, because and in life every day you kind of get different examples of these situations that are thrown at you, and these provide a very good. It's a very good framework for taking good decisions. So, whilst on the one hand, yes, law is very formal, process oriented, but there is a huge ethical and purpose-driven side to it, not only as we advise our client, but even for ourselves. How do we treat our people? How do we treat our clients? How do we treat society as well? And lawyers can play it's not accident that many of the world's greatest leaders, including Gandhiji, was a lawyer as well. So there is a very short road between the legal profession and public policy.
Let's move on to another sort of aspect now, Mr. Piramal. Balancing legacy and renewable in succession planning, particularly for founder-led businesses like yours. What do you believe is more important in succession planning, sir? Legacy or enabling change, enabling reinvention in that sense?
So, it depends on what you define as legacy. According to me, legacy is actually the values that you can pass on from one generation to the other. I know some of the values that I talk about are the values that was given to me. I learned from my father. It's not always formally given, but you can see it and work. And I think those are the values which have to go from one generation to the next. So I believe that values are eternal. And the second part of this, I believe, is that the world is changing and society is changing. So you keep both. You have to have eternal values, values of integrity, values of trusteeship, values of Entrepreneurship, that is constant. But as time goes, businesses change. So we've reinvented every business of ours. And in fact, we did once a research on all our businesses. We have several plants and facilities globally. And the common thing that came out with independent people who did the research for us was that the values remain the same. So whether it is a Indian or an American or a European, it doesn't matter. This has to continue.
Mr. Piramal, in terms of preparing the next generation, sir, with regards to what you described, how you described it, right? I mean, legacy is nothing but the values that you got, that you lived by, and what you want the next generation to carry on with. How do you prepare for that?
So I think the preparation is, of course, we have now articulated our values to our whole organization. In that process itself, both my daughter and son were deeply involved in doing that. But I think more important than just putting up something on the walls is how do you practice it? How do you practice it in daily life as well? And I'm very glad that I can see that happening in both my kids. I'll give you an example. Like for us, the value is a lot that you have to give back to society. You have to be grateful for whatever you have got and you are privileged. So my daughter and her husband started a NGO which was providing clean drinking water to society. Even her kids, who are only, at the age of 11 and 9, she would take them to aspirational districts, which is where we are doing work. My son Anand also has done the same thing. When he was young, the first business he started was doing a pharmaceutical a business to provide drugs to the most challenged parts of the country, where there was no access to modern medicine, to the Western allopathic medicine before. So that was when he was a young fellow. He would go to Rajasthan at 50 degrees and work the field. Or he started a young fellowship, which today is our Gandhi Fellowship, which has about now 5,000 young people working. So this is how I think it's really enunciating the values is one thing, but actually living them is the more important.
Mr. Shroff, Mr. Piramal, I have to take a quick commercial break here. Allow me to do that. We are back. Don't go anywhere.
Cyril Amarchand Mangaldas presents CNBC TV18, The Thought League Season 3, A Glorious Decade, A Century of Service.
Welcome back. You're watching The Thought League Season 3 and we're in conversation with Mr. Ajay Piramal and Mr. Cyril Shroff. Let's dive right back in. Mr. Shroff, let me come to you. What are the trick, according to you, to preserving the best of the past while remaining irreverent? I mean, this is very important, especially in this fast-changing world, to be able to tap the opportunities of the future, avoiding sunk cost fallacies when pivoting. How do you do it?
Absolutely. We are 108 years old. The firm was founded by my grandfather, and we're still, at it, and intend to be at it for a long, long time. And the firm that you see today, and probably the firm that you see, tomorrow, will be very different than the firm that was there yesterday. We're constantly changing. Even our tagline is ahead of the curve. So constantly self-disrupting is in our DNA, and that's a core value. But we haven't changed our values at any point of time. We have, I think, follow the same values framework that my grandfather did or my father did. And there's a very core principle, because as lawyers and advisors, you're like a counselor. And a counselor doesn't give only legal advice. He's the dispenser of wisdom and judgment as well. And I think